Hey there, this is episode 96 of The First 10 Minutes. I'm Tony Parmenter.
I'm Steve Halliwell.
And I'm Aaron Williams.
And this is a video games podcast where we play the first 10 minutes of a video game. Then we sit down here to discuss how well that game communicates itself to the player, both in terms of what the game is about and how to play the game. And in response to our latest listener poll, which you can find at The First 10 Minutes on Twitter, you, the listeners, voted for us to play Heat Signature. I had the privilege of playing Heat Signature, and now I'm going to talk about it, and you can't stop me.
Go.
You're correct, we can't.
Glad we cleared that up.
I can't hang up the Hangouts call.
I'm out. I'm done. 96. It's not quite Bradman, but I'm out of here.
Yep.
Okay, so Heat Signature was developed and published by Suspicious Developments and was released on the 22nd of September 2017. So it is brand spanking new as of the time we're recording. You'll be pleased to know that Wikipedia defines Heat Signature as an action stealth video game developed by Suspicious Developments.
This is checking out.
Yeah.
These details are corroborating.
You may be even more pleased to hear some Steam tags.
Yep. Indeed, I would.
Brace yourselves. Heat Signature is an indie action space stealth adventure strategy top-down roguelike procedural generation sci-fi single-player open world roguelite. So roguelike ranking much higher than roguelite, as distinguished from a like-light or a light-light.
Yep.
Or a like, as it were.
It could be.
Or a rogue-esque. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, of course, Heat Signature being developed by one of the developers, Tom Francis, who was the maker of Gunpoint. And I also believe that the artist who worked on Gunpoint, whose name I will recall when I watch it back on the video in a moment, also worked on this game. All right.
So
yes.
the Steam description, though, tells us Heat Signature is a game from the developers of Gunpoint where you break into spaceships, make terrible mistakes, and think of clever ways out of them. You take a mission, fly to a target ship, sneak inside, and make clever use of gadgets to distract, ambush, and take out the crew.
It can't possibly be that thorough, Steve, because Wikipedia clearly said, in a very concise
You're right,
manner.
Overruled. Well, the developers know. The community has spoken.
I believe one of the taglines for the game is also a game where you can go inside the spaceships.
That's pretty good.
Which I think
is quite good.
Is a wonderfully succinct but also evocative way of talking about things. So let's dive straight in, shall we?
Shall.
We're going to dive into this the way that the character I control in this game dives into deep space, because this game opens on what I eventually realize is a spaceship, which has some black and orange hazard striping pattern on the top of it. So yes, this is a top-down. The spaceship is a box. And out of one of the windows on the right-hand side of this ship, after a few seconds, there's suddenly a smashing noise, and then the camera starts whisking away to the right, following what I eventually realize is a person who is now flying through space. Now, I'm imagining that this is a rather excellent callback to the opening of Gunpoint, made by the same developers, where the character also smashes out of the window of a building.
Yeah,
now you're in space.
So there's a trend developing here. It's not a trend yet. We'll have to wait for game number 3 and see what happens.
Yes.
So this character is now zooming along through space, and the camera very swiftly zooms in. I get a cameo picture of the character along with a text box with the character's name, which is Seda Fiasco. Quite nice.
Oh,
that's pretty great.
And Seda Fiasco says, "This is not how I pictured my retirement." A little icon on the screen indicates that I should click the left mouse button, which I do. The text then changes and continues, getting shot over a nebula of battery acid in the arse end of nowhere. So each line, I click the mouse button to confirm and to proceed. And Seda continues by saying, "But I'm invested now. And there's one last thing I want to do before I quit." After I click again, it closes. It closes the text box window, and then there's a couple of seconds pause. I was waiting for what the big moment was going to be. And then a spaceship kind of just slaps down Monty Python style onto my character in space.
Okay.
Which was
And there was much rejoicing.
pleasantly surprising and gave me a little bit of a chuckle. The left mouse button icon appears again, and it tells me to hold this button to thrust. And then the camera very swiftly zooms out and 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 out. The art of my spaceship is replaced with like a white icon, vaguely in the shape of my ship, and I can see my thrust of the ship coming out behind me, indicating the direction of travel. I can see an orange cursor, like a little arrow cursor that I now have control of. As I move it around the screen, it points directly away in a radial fashion from where my ship is. So this is clearly the way that my ship is going to be thrusting when I hold the mouse button. And another little green arrow indicates the text that says dock here, which is back in the direction of the ship that I just jumped out of. So pretty straightforward here. I click and hold the left mouse button. As I hold, I get a series, like a ladder of orange arrows heading out towards my direction cursor, telling me that I'm actually holding the mouse button down. So I place my orange cursor arrow over the green indicator arrow of where I'm supposed to dock.
Yes.
And as I approach closer and closer, the camera then starts to zoom in further and further and further and further. So there are many scales of magnitude here, and there's a really lovely Starfield zooming effect as you start scrolling in and in that really gives you a sense of just how many scales of magnitude there are to this zoom. The other thing that I think is really interesting about this is that the actual speed at which you're traveling, it's hard to get a sense as to whether my speed is remaining the same as I zoom in or whether it is zoom relative to the speed. That it's odd, but it doesn't feel disconcerting. It's enough that my brain is going, am I moving at a constant speed here, or is it scaling my speed as it's zooming the camera? Because my understanding is that the primary objective here is to show the vastness of space without making you wait EVE Online style to actually traverse the vast distances of space. All right, pardon me. As I approach closer to this docking position, a little circle is drawn around where I'm going to dock, and the icon changes to the right mouse button and tells me to hold that button to brake. So I immediately do so. I slow down too much. I then left hold to thrust. I right hold the brake to try and maneuver myself at a reasonable speed so that I don't overshoot my target.
Yep.
So as I'm getting closer and closer to the ship, I notice I'm approaching it from the right of screen, and I notice that on the right-hand face of the spaceship, directly underneath where the green indicator arrow is pointing, there's an arc sort of being drawn out of the side of the ship. And I, quite mistakenly, it turns out, assumed that this was a docking arc that was telling me, if you approach within this arc, you will be in docking position and will dock with the ship.
Yep. Docking animation will ensue.
This is because of the dock here text that I read before. Now, what I didn't notice was that as I've zoomed in closer and closer and closer, there's actually another smaller green arrow on the other side of the ship where I'm actually supposed to dock. A little bit of mixed messaging happening here, but I can tell you that I learned my lesson rather well, because as I approached into what I thought was a docking arc, once I entered it, it disappeared, and I had a fraction of a second to go, aha, success. And then my little spaceship goes, dong, and bounces off the outside of the ship, which I'll admit, I thought was fucking hilarious.
Nice.
That's pretty great. It's like the idea that they've understood that there's some docking issues with the spacecraft out here, so they've just retrofitted them with like bowling alley bumper bars.
Yeah. Given the fact that I'm about to go inside this ship and murder the occupants, I'm not sure that I've made a very stealthy approach to this particular operation.
It's a distraction. They think you're on the other side of the ship.
Yeah, that's it. They're not going to be expecting you to come in from the other side of the ship.
They were barricading the airlock, and then they hear this dung on the other side of the ship. They're like, fuck.
It's like
you did exactly what you were supposed to do.
This is the equivalent of throwing a stone.
Yep. You Far Cry 2 this shit.
To distract people.
Yeah.
This is what Space Batman would have done.
Yep.
So if you'd like to, dear listeners, if you'd like to see just how amusing this looked, the recording of this gameplay footage is up on our YouTube channel, and you can find a link to that in the show notes for this episode. And I do encourage you to go and have a look at it because it is quite giggle-worthy. Anyway, after I've dunged off the outside of the ship, I go, well, whoops, and I slowly maneuver my way around the top of the ship. So I'm doing sort of small little thruster bursts now because I'm doing a lot of fine maneuvering. And because I haven't got a good sense of how this works yet, I haven't got my eye in, as it were, I kind of overshoot. I have to backpedal a little bit. And then eventually I dock with the space station, with the larger ship. As soon as this happens, there's a nice satisfying sort of connection noise. And then the camera starts zooming slowly in, and the top ceiling of both ships disappears. So I can now see the inside of the small ship that I'm in and the larger ship that I've docked with.
So it sort of swaps to like Hotline Miami view?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it's always been in Hotline Miami view. It's just that the ceiling wasn't removed.
Sure.
But now I can see the interiors, and it's a boxy room with thinner connecting corridors kind of layout. Almost like if you've ever made a pen and paper RPG map on grid paper, it's kind of like that kind of layout, but with some rather lovely detail and shading.
So does it
in this cartoon?
Can you
style.
still zoom in and out however much you want?
You can zoom in and out when you're in this mode. It hasn't instructed me to do this yet, but it will do very shortly.
Cool.
I didn't check the extents of the zoom, but it's enough that you can get a more broad overview of a considerably large area of rooms.
Right.
Or you can zoom right in to see a bit more character detail. All right.
Presumably to be constricted to a degree.
I assume it would be limited, yes, so you can't zoom out to galaxy map while you're running around a couple of corridors.
Because play space has been limited now.
Yep. And on this ship, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rooms, kind of laid out in sort of like an S connection pattern, but with a little bit of a side area off to it. Now, upon review, I realised that there are 2 rooms here that I don't go into, and one of those rooms is the window that I burst out of, and it now has a force field across the shattered window.
Okay.
It also looks like the room that it connects to is behind a locked door that I never open, and there are 3 people in there, although now that I'm looking at it, I assume they might be bodies, and they're possibly my ex-compatriots. And possibly deceased. I don't actually know, but I intend to replay the tutorial to see if I can open that door and find out. All right, so I have some tooltips on the screen. On the very right-hand side of screen, it tells me to press the E button to return to the pod, which I assume is the thing that I'm already in. On the left-hand side of the screen, it tells me WASD to move up, left, down, and right. So I still have my mouse cursor on the screen as well.
Okay.
So I WASD my way out of this pod that I'm in. I walk immediately out of a corridor and directly into a wall, and this tells me straight away the darker colours are walls that you can't move through, and the lighter bluer colours are floor that I can move through. So I'm already starting to learn about where are the barriers and where are the areas that I can maneuver. Mm-hmm. So I move my way to the right. I start heading towards a doorway that has a padlock on it, a padlock icon on it. As I reach this padlock door, there's a key icon in the next room, and it brightens and scales up a little bit, and then a tooltip appears pointing to it saying, "You need this keycard."
Okay.
Now, I appreciated the directness of this instruction. There's no abstraction of like in-world fiction. And I also appreciated that it's talking directly to me. It's not my character in the game going, "Oh, I need that keycard."
Yeah.
It's just the game telling me, "Yo, you need this thing."
Yeah.
Another tooltip appears that says "space," as in the spacebar button. Pause now. So I press the spacebar, and this brings me to the world time is frozen, and here's a bunch of UI. So on the top right-hand corner, it gives me a bunch of lifetime stats, like kills, knockouts, injuries suffered, blah, 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 blah. I ignore all of that because one of the tooltip buttons that appears zooms all the way from the right of screen across to the left of screen, immediately catching my attention. So I follow it with my eyes, and then I read the instruction that it gives me. And it tells me, left mouse button, you can click items in this list to teleport them to you. And because it's zoomed right up to the buttons, the items that it wants me to click on, I go, okay. It tells me, teleport items on this ship to you. There's one that looks like the key icon that I've just seen in world. And there's another one, sort of like a blue hook-looking thing. I don't know what it is yet, but we'll get there. Up above this, I can also see a little tooltip window that says you, say to Fiasco, and then an inventory list that is currently empty. There's also a few little stat thingies down the bottom that I never noticed while I was playing and I didn't pay attention to, and I was never told to look at them, so I'm going to skip over them.
All right.
So it tells me you can click items in this list to zoom them to you. I cursor over the blue hook because I don't know what it is yet, and it tells me this is Fiasco's Facebreaker. Hey, that's me. A freakishly fast, light, quiet, and powerful non-lethal melee weapon. Previously owned by your character, Seda Fiasco. Instantly resolves any personnel-related disputes. Nice. Which is a quote attributed to Seda Fiasco.
I'm a little sad that it dropped the alliteration so quickly.
How so?
The Fiasco's Facebreaker,
yes.
And then it starts off by describing it as furiously fast. I was like, we're off and away here.
Freakishly fast, yes.
Freakishly fast.
Yep.
Sorry, I had Vin
right.
Diesel on the brain.
You did. This is not about family, to my knowledge.
But it could have been. See, do you see what I mean? Like, we could have kept it going.
Right. It also tells me a bunch of other things, none of which I read at the time. Would you like to hear it?
Yes.
Yes.
Concussive. Knocks people unconscious for the foreseeable future. There's some more for you.
There we go. It's back. Yes.
Ignores armor. Effective against armored guards. I'll also note that armor is spelled correctly in the English fashion.
Nice. And effective has 2 Fs in it.
It does. It also says long dash range, dash 8 meters to strike a target. Holy
That's a
shit.
pretty decent dash.
That holy shit
bad.
was my editorializing, by the way. It doesn't actually say holy shit in the tooltip.
That would have been great, though.
It would have been nice.
It would have been.
Quick recovery. Swing again almost immediately after a successful strike. And it also says quiet strike. Strike can only be heard from 1 meter away. Whew.
Wow.
It's like a Facebreaker.
But the 8 meter dash.
Nice.
The 8 meter dash will be heard by everybody.
Anyway, I can left click to teleport this to me, or I can press the E button to stash later. I'm not quite sure what that means, but that's fine. So I cursor over the key. I know what the key is. I click on it immediately, and all the UI disappears, and the game unpauses. I see a lovely little sort of rainbow confetti trail of particles go from the key icon's position towards me, the character, and it tells me that I picked up a level 1 keycard for this ship. Because I'm standing immediately touching the door with the padlock on it, and I have the key, it automatically opens for me. I get a nice sound cue confirming that it's open. And then as soon as I walk through this doorway, it tells me to press the space bar again to pause the game. So I do that, and again, I get the tooltip zoom from the right to the left to draw my attention. It's now highlighting Fiasco's Facebreaker, and it tells me to left-click to teleport your Facebreaker to you. So I do so. The icon then appears up in my inventory list, and another zip from the right to the left tooltip tells me left-click the Facebreaker to make it your main attack. So I'm learning a couple of things from this now. I'm learning that I equip items from my inventory by pressing the button that I'm going to use for it and left-clicking click, not surprisingly, is going to be my primary action. So I left click on the Fiasco's Facebreaker in the inventory list. The left click mouse icon now appears next to the item in the inventory list, so I can see what it's mapped to. Pardon me. And then a new tooltip appears in the world with a little arrow pointing to the middle of the room I'm in, and it tells me, stand about here. Which, again, is a lovely, specific, concise, direct instruction to me, Tony, the player, and just lets me get on with playing the game.
Yeah, that's real good.
So I WASD'd my way to stand about where I'm supposed to stand. And the game highlights what I now realize is a guard standing, pointing directly away from me in the next doorway. And this guard has a bit of a pinky purple halo around them. Because I'm now recognizing this as a hostile, I can now see another one of them standing in one of the following rooms. And I can see a third person who is sitting in a red floored room in what looks like a chair. So I'm assuming that's where the pilot sits. All right. Mm-hmm. The game then tells me with another zipping tooltip to hold the left button to aim a strike. So I put my cursor over the guard who's immediately near me. I press and hold the button. It tells me I can press spacebar to cancel the aim. And I also get a nice orange targeting reticle that locks onto this guard. And I get a strip of kind of overlay UI showing me the direction that I'm going to move to actually contact with this guard. A tooltip then very helpfully zips in and points to the guard saying, hit this guy. And I do so. So when I release the button, no.
Oh.
When I release the button, I zoom forward at a great rate of knots. I get a nice punching a ham leg sort of sound effect.
Yep.
And this guard then kind of 2D top-down ragdoll shoots across the room until they contact with a wall, at which point they kind of stop with a bit of a sickening crunch. And I see an item of some kind come zipping out of them with a little trail render on it. Turns out that this is a gun that they have dropped, because the tooltip tells me to take his gun, and it also informs me the next door out of the room is locked.
Okay.
So I walk over to the gun. It tells me to press the F button to take the gun, and I do so. It then tells me to pause the game again, and I do so. It then tells me to right-click the gun to make it my right-click attack. And I do so. I can see...
I'm very good at following instructions.
It is. I'm pretty good at this game.
Yep. Yeah. Nailing it.
I also see that my gun has 24 rounds in it. So, again, the stand about here icon appears back in the room that I was just in. So I walk over there, and then it tells me, hold the right mouse button to aim a shot, brackets, anywhere. I'm like,
okay.
Anywhere? So what I appreciated about this is that it's about to teach me a few different things at the same time. It's telling me how to shoot a gun.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's allowing me to learn that in an opportunity where I don't have any immediate threats.
Yep.
But it's also going to use this to tell me that, if you fire a gun, it's going to alert people.
As opposed to flying a ship into the side of another ship.
Correct.
That's normal space debris stuff. That's fine.
That's par for the course.
I was wondering if it was also going to teach you that bullets bounced around inside the cabin or something.
Well, I do get a little bit of a ricochet across the room and the wall that I've shot into, and they do seem to ricochet off at a realistic pool table angle.
Okay.
Right.
But I don't know if the actual projectile was moving or if it's just a nicely tuned particle effect.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so at no point does it ask you to angle a shot or anything like that?
No.
Okay,
so after I've shot this, I get I get the particle effect ricochet, I get the gunfire sound, and then over the top of both of the remaining hostiles, the word intruder in all capitals appears.
Uh-huh.
You've identified the intruders.
The closest guard to me then starts moving towards me, and the game tells me to press the space bar to pause when he reaches you. There's then an alarm sound effect. The intruder text over the heads of these characters goes red, and then there's a huge red border appears around the entire game screen with alarm, 447 seconds until capture. and a very bright red glow on the screen.
Okay.
Sure. Now, as this guard starts moving towards me, I see that they have a key icon next to them with the number 2 on it, and the locked door that they're approaching has a padlock with the number 2 on it. So when he approaches the door, he moves through it because he's got the corresponding key card, and then this guard walks around the corner into the room that I'm in, and then I pause the game.
So what was the proximity of the guard to you when you paused the game?
So the smallest rooms in here on the ship are a 3x3 grid, so kind of like 9 sort of grid paper grids if this were a D&D map.
Yeah.
And if we're using that, the guard is approximately 2 grids away from me.
Okay. Because, the reason I asked that is because the wording of that instruction was really odd to me, the idea of like pause when he reaches you.
Yep.
My interpretation of that would be pause when he is touching you.
Right, okay. Well,
so I just wondered what motivated you to pause before that, because I've reviewed your footage.
Sure. The clarity of these maps is such that I understand how line of sight will work.
Sure.
So as soon as the guard appears to be somewhere where they would conceivably have line of sight to shoot me, because they're very clearly holding a weapon, that's when I pause the game.
Okay.
Right. So the pause section of the game now informs me to pause a lot. You have as long as you like to scroll the mouse wheel to zoom, hold the shift button to move the camera around, or hold the left button, mouse button, to aim attacks. So I'm like, okay, that's nice.
Nice.
I have the ability to defy the laws of linear time.
Yep.
So I take advantage of this by zooming the mouse wheel in and out a little bit, by holding the shift button and moving the mouse cursor around, and then cursoring over the guard, pressing the left mouse button, and they suffer the same fate as the previous guard. Now, quite nicely, because I've done a melee attack, and they've been thrown back directly away from me, just walking in the direction that I now have to go means that I automatically pick up keycard number 2, and I automatically walk near their gun, which I also pick up because it's always nice to have more guns.
I guess, yeah.
Sure.
All right. I can also now see that the alarm counter is no longer 447 seconds. It's counting down very slowly. As I move into the next room, it informs me about alarms with a big tooltip box. Alarms. Guards sound the alarm if they hear a shot, find a body, or see you. If the countdown hits 0, you'll be captured. Taking out the captain cancels the countdown. It tells me to press the spacebar to unpause when I'm ready. So I read all of the information in this tooltip. I unpause the game. And then I start heading towards this one remaining character who looks like they're sitting in a chair. And when I get close to them, the text tells me, hit the captain. So I'm like, okay, I do exactly the same thing again. The captain goes flying out of the seat. And then conveniently again, because I've melee attacked directly to the seat, it now tells me press E to fly the ship because I'm standing right next to the chair.
Nice.
So the captain, because of the way that I've hit them, flies out of the other window that wasn't smashed on the ship. Smash out of it. Nice force field appears. Cursor tells me to take the helm and that the ship is secured. So I press the E button. Pardon me. I press the E button, I take the helm, and I begin flying the ship. Tells me to press F, not E, F, which was a little bit different, to set course for Cold Rock Haven. Proper noun.
So close.
Yep.
So the ship I can see the ship begin to sort of turn on screen slightly, and I get my character, Seda Fiasco, speaking more text now. Seda says, Breaker, I've got the siege ship. I've laid in a course for Cold Rock Haven. This ship can crash the defenses, but you've got to reprogram them from the inside while they're down. I'm going to throw myself into space now. Meet me in the bar if I don't die. The camera then zooms back out a little bit. A tooltip zooms in to point to the window the captain just smashed out of, and it tells me, throw yourself into space. So
Okay.
I paused for a brief moment to go,
Yeah.
what?
Really?
I'm not entirely sure of the in-world logic here, but I'm not sure that it really matters.
Yeah.
So I walk towards this window, and as soon as I zip outside of it, I go shooting out into space. The camera then begins zooming out at a great rate of knots, and I'm zooming away from my ship way faster than I should, given how physics works, but whatever. And I'm now heading directly down on the screen. It then zooms out and 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 out. And what it's very slowly doing to me is it's starting to show me the game credits. And it's also eventually going to come to rest on the map of the entire galaxy or cluster or whatever proper noun applies to the whole world map.
Cool.
So you'll be pleased to know that Tom Francis did design, code, and words for this particular game.
Nice.
I'm also listening to a very nice little musical piece playing in the background here. The art for this game was done by John Roberts, and I'm starting to see the galaxy map presented in the style of like how you would see constellations illustrated, with very bright stars and lines connecting them, the same way that you would see them represented in the night sky for like Sagittarius or what have you. The game informs me music by John Halpart, and this zoom out begins to slow down, and the tone of the music suggests it's time to appreciate the majesty of space. Music also by Chris Harvey. And what I appreciated about this particular section of the game is it really gives you a moment to breathe. I've just done all of this action and all of this hitting and punching and reading instructions and following instructions. I've got a little bit of world building in the dialogue that my characters said. But this is the moment to go and space and colors and nebula and pretty things. It's a nice little breather.
It was really odd. It like a good kind of odd.
Yeah.
To pair that sort of pithy dialogue with the the fast paced action to then just give you a quiet moment of awe. Just kind of like that idea, like even in this universe where everything's slightly askew, there's still the majesty of a galaxy.
Yes. Of three-dimensional infinity being represented on a 2D map.
Yeah, indeed.
Code for the game by John Winder. And then it comes to rest. I can see there are kind of 4 arms. It's not really a galaxy per se. It doesn't look like an elliptical or a spiral-armed. But there are 4 clear branches to this, each of which has an incredibly bright star at its far extremity. I'm going to use north, south, east, and west because it's convenient. The north and south arms are coloured blue, and the east and west arms are coloured orange. It's not quite orange and teal, but it's pretty close.
So it's not full Michael Bay.
Not quite. And then the logo of the game Heat Signature appears in giant text across the bottom of the screen. There's a very long pause as it fades out. So by this point, I had well and truly breathed a little bit of a sigh of relief, but I have no idea what I'm going to do now because I've literally thrown myself into space. I can see the icon of my ship and myself, very, very small at the top of screen next to the entire galaxy. And then the star right in the middle of this cluster has a tooltip appear over it that says Cold Rock Haven, which is exactly the place that I just talked about, that my character just talked about. Seda then pipes up while plummeting through space to say, Cold Rock Haven has been captured and recaptured 4 times this year. First 3 times, no one who lived there could fight it. This time, one of them can. I'm assuming that means me. This time, one of them has a 40-year career in espionage, a breacher stealth pod, and a kinetic facebreaker. That does sound like me.
Yep.
I guess. I do have a facebreaker.
You fit that bill.
So it's going to change hands one last time. So at this point, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to have to go and do what I just did again at Cold Rock Haven. Seda then confirms this by saying, this time I'm taking it. I'm like, all right. How do I not be in deep space having jumped out of my ship to accomplish this thing?
How long will this take?
After all of the text disappears, there's a brief pause, and then the Cold Rock Haven star does a pulse, and there's almost like a drumbeat sound effect just to emphasize that I'm heading there.
Mm-hmm.
Or, alternatively, that was meant to be some kind of an explosion indicating that it's already been taken.
Or that it's perpetually in conflict?
Well, the reason why I'm now, having reviewed my footage a couple of times, I'm leaning towards no, that was an explosion and the station has been taken over, is the tooltip changes from Cold Rock Haven to home. And then the camera starts zooming back in and in and in and in and in and in to where my body is plummeting through space a ways to the south of my spaceship. So after it does this very long zoom in again to emphasize the vastness of space, I'm instructed to press the pause button to pause the game. And then up in the top right hand of screen, under the section Things You Can Do Here, which I had a good chuckle at.
Cool.
It says remote control your pod and tells me to left mouse button, click to remote control your pod. So I'm like, that sounds quite handy at this exact moment in time.
Yeah.
So when I press that, it then does a snap zoom to the pod, not the ship that I just jumped out of, but the little pod that I docked to it with.
Yep.
The one that slapped down on top of me Monty Python style. I don't know why it can't slap down on me Monty Python style again. But it snap zooms to it. It zooms way out, and I'm now focused. My point of view is now on my ship icon, and it tells me to catch yourself. It also tells me that right button brake will try to match your speed to the thing you're approaching, which in this case is me. So as you're approaching you, hold the right mouse button to slow down. So I more or less just have to head directly down screen. So I do this. I overshoot myself by a little bit, but this gives me an opportunity again to do a little bit of fine maneuvering, and I amusingly get the punch the ham leg sound effect again.
Yep.
When I
was wondering if you would get a
ship over myself.
Or a boom.
I didn't get a boom this time, no. Anyway, now I'm piloting the ship already. It does the very long zoom out to the full galaxy, and it tells me to dock here over the Cold Rock Haven star. So it's a reasonably lengthy process because in terms of the scale of the whole, I'm going to call it a galaxy. In terms of the scale of the galaxy map, it's essentially now telling me travel half the width of the galaxy and dock on this thing. And again, the EVE Online part of my brain was going, but it doesn't take that long. And this is what leads me to believe that speed that you're moving is screen relative, and it's entirely dictated by the zoom, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
either that or it's just a really small map with a lot of little encounters in it.
It could be. Actually, now that I'm speaking out loud and recording this where everyone can hear it, it's possibly akin to what No Man's Sky does with the how long is it going to take you to reach this thing traveling at your current speed, and that speed can vary wildly depending on what you're doing. So the emphasis here appears to be on how can we have our cake and eat it too. Space is huge, but also we'll just let you get there pretty quickly.
Yep,
definitely.
Alrighty. So as I approach this structure, it looks like kind of like a space station growing out of an asteroid. And there's a docking bay on the top of it, like a tri-part docking bay door on a round pad. So I dock in the middle of that. The doors close. My ship disappears inside it. And then we get a little zoom in. It zooms in a fair way to a map of an interior. and immediately the sense that I get from looking at this thing is, oh, I'm in a space bar.
Okay.
Like the Mos Eisley Cantina, but more colourful and in space.
So more SteamWorld Heist.
Yes, that would be a good reference. With the similar, I'm going to call this one orange and teal this time because it is much more teal than blue.
Hey.
And a bunch of sort of neon signage like hamburgers and rocket ships and a whole bunch of other paraphernalia.
Regular space stuff.
Yeah. One character sitting in a booth near the bar has a tooltip that tells me talk to Breaker. I'm like, oh, that's the person I was just speaking to via the text as I was plummeting through space. So I walk over, I press the E button to talk to Breaker Gemini.
Okay.
And now I enter a
Good
dialogue.
names.
I enter a dialogue exchange. So Breaker Gemini, with his corresponding little piece of cameo art, says, "Holy shit, you're alive." And my two options are, because you reprogrammed the station defenses, right? Or, I get that more than you'd think. Do you want to play the guessing game?
Yes.
You can't, Aaron, because you've watched this. Steve?
I get that more than you think.
You know me too well. Breaker Gemini continues, "Hey, we have a station." Steve, my options are,
Yep.
we have a station, or I have a station. I mean, it also tells me I can go back or I can leave. But I didn't do either of those.
Oh, leaving would have been great, though.
Leave would be fantastic, yeah.
Let's go with I have a station.
Are you 2 for 2?
Yeah.
This is... Am I so transparent? Breaker Gemini then continues, "Almost hard to believe 9 people have shot you, Seda." My options, Steve, are, "It's 10 now," or "It's like no one can take a joke," or "I believe it when I lift my left arm." That is way harder to say out loud than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
I believe it when I lift my left arm.
Yes.
Yeah, that was yeah, I had to really concentrate on that one. I'm not being sarcastic there, I'm being genuine. I genuinely had to concentrate, but then I thought, as I said that, I was like, you sound sarcastic. Best clarify lest the audience and your colleagues think you're a dick.
Yes.
I think the second one.
It's like no one could take a joke?
Yeah.
Oh, Steve, you were so close.
Damn.
I selected "It's 10 now."
Yeah.
Now, I'm very pleased that I did, and you'll find out why in a moment.
Okay.
Breaker Gemini then says, "And somehow it's never enough." I now have continue, back, or leave. So I'm like, continue? This is gonna start something, you know. Other stations are going to want to throw off the shackles like this. 4 factions fighting over this cloud. If we ever get their strongholds, this war just ends. Now, I want to jump into this this blissfully brief but evocative lore dump.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Aaron, in two short bursts of text that are very thankfully devoid of lots of proper nouns.
Mm-hmm.
What have you learned about the state of this game world?
That there's a lot of conflict, and that it seems like we kind of got a Firefly Wild Westy type situation happening here. That there are a lot of different people that are vying for platforms of power, and that these stations appear to be the hub of that power.
Yep.
And it would seem that there are 4 more potentially out there.
Nice. So I'm anticipating the connections that I made here were 4 factions. There are 4 arms to this galaxy, and there are 4 very bright stars at the ends of all of those arms of the galaxy, and I'm dead in the center. So that kind of logically makes sense. I appreciate, like, this is overt exposition, but it knows that, and it just does what it needs to do. It uses common English, like common
they're not full of, like, the Kervaki have lingered in the Warlock sector for too long.
Man of Steel, this is not.
This sounds like this sounds like how characters. This sounds like how people would exposition to one another. I nearly said exposed to one another, but that's a totally different.
How they expose.
All right. So 4 factions fighting over this cloud. If we ever get their strongholds, this war just ends. My options, Steve, are that's a long shot, or that's an interesting idea, or that's the plan.
That's the plan.
Okay. Steve, I do also want to ask you, before I tell you if you were correct,
All right.
what is the difference between these options and why am I being given them?
Oh, give them to me again.
That's a long shot. That's
Yep.
an interesting idea, or that's the plan.
So I'm getting the sense that you're able to choose how invested your character is in this ongoing conflict, how dedicated they are to the cause in your response. That's the kind of the way I'm taking that.
And do you feel that's going to have any material kind of mechanical difference in the game, or is this?
No, I
Okay.
don't get the sense that anything you've done so far is like that the narrative you've been given so far is like Walking Deading its way through the world.
Okay.
This is more of a the dog's name was Blue scenario.
Okay. So to play devil's advocate, even though nobody has done the other bit before the devil's advocate steps in, why is
Anti-devil's
it-
advocate. Yeah.
Why is it here in the game?
Why is anything anywhere?
Why anything, man?
Yeah. So this is to me, this is a very economical way of adding more flavor to the world that you're in, instead of it just being, welcome to level 7, kill them.
Right.
Congratulations. Welcome to level 8, kill them. Congratulations. And it's letting you build your own attachment with this character instead of the character telling you how they feel about everything.
Right.
Which is a very video gamey thing to be able to do.
Yes.
So it's letting you build the most interesting version of the person you are to you.
I think the interesting thing of note there is that though it's allowing you to paint your own pastiche of what type of character this person is, but by and large it's built around the notions of humor and sarcasm. So it's like, into what form do you wish to be sarcastic about this?
Right.
From what angle? I think that's really interesting. The way that each of the dialogue options that you've been given to date are all sort of connecting to that similar notion.
Right.
That idea that like none of you are really taking this that seriously,
Yep.
but it's just, where are you going to put the gag?
Right. Right. Aaron, I just want to commend you on the phrase "paint your personal pastiche."
Yeah.
Thanks. Didn't plan for that.
There's a
Didn't plan
plethora-
for that perfect. Yeah.
There's a
There we go.
plethora
Yeah,
of
you-
plosives that I just realized I have to clean up because these audio recordings are all separate.
I apologize for the hard P.
Profusely.
Profusely.
All right, so Steve,
I hope that this apology pleases you.
So Steve, you said that's the plan. Was the option you were going for?
I believe so, yes.
All right. So I kind of ummed and ahed between options here, which was weird to me when I was kind of reflecting on this, that I would spend longer than previous options to actually decide on which one to take. And I think what happened here was I was kind of going much along the lines of what you were just saying, Steve. I was trying to figure out, well, who is my character exactly, and how are they going to approach this world? So I went with that's a long shot.
Okay.
And Breaker Gemini continued, sure you don't want to postpone your retirement and help out? And I went,
Okay.
huh?
What?
He went, back.
No, I just committed to my character saying that it was a long shot, but I'm going to get there in the end. Anyway, here's where my earlier selection pays off in spades, I think, Steve.
Okay. All right.
My options are, I've been shot 10 times, Breaker. I'll be lucky if I make it to the couch. Now, I really want to go back and play this again and not correct the number of times I was shot to see whether that changes back to 9. I thought that was a wonderful little touch. And
I mean,
nice
that's an easy call and replace. Yeah. Like,
it's a nice little callback, and it's just enough of a hint that no, we are paying attention to what you clicked on.
Yep.
At least within this context of a conversation. Anyway, I've been shot 10 times, Breaker. I'll be lucky if I make it to the couch. Or, I'm really goddamn tired, Breaker. Or, I'm helping. I'm drinking and helping.
Oh, 3 is so good.
I love drinking and helping.
I think you probably would have gone with 2. It's got to be 2 or 3, right? 3 is so good. But I don't think it's in line with all the other things you've chosen so far.
They're all good, but I was really tickled by the fact that it reminded me.
It reminded you of 10?
It was 10 times. So I went with that one.
Typical sentimental parmenter.
Nice. Breaker Gemini then continues, fair enough. So that's it? You really going to retire? I can't picture it. What are you going to do? My options, Steve, are I have connections. People here have problems. I'm going to help out. Or I have connections. People here have money. I'm going to sell out. Or it's pretty good, right? Or I'm going to sit in that booth watching you guys do all the hard work.
I'm going to sit in that booth.
Watching you guys do all the hard work?
Yep.
Well, once again, I and ahed between my options.
Because 2 is a great joke, but
it is
3 seems like the better outcome.
But 2 is a great joke that requires the first one to also exist.
Yeah.
Yes, and that is, I assure you, why I did pick the third option.
Yeah.
It's not an insight into my work ethic. I promise. I'll be blunt. I've done all the work till this point. I clicked all the buttons. I read all the instructions.
That's true.
You paused the game.
I paused the game. I hit people with a facebreaker. I jumped into space twice.
Yep.
You've done your part.
At least once on purpose.
I've earned this. And I did it all when I was only 1 day from retirement.
Yeah.
And I didn't die. It's subverting tropes all over the place.
There you go.
Anyway,
You've broken Schumacher's falling down.
Oh, God. Breaker says, I'm going to make the station kill you on sight again. My options are, that's fair, or I can never tell when you're joking.
Let's go with that's fair.
Incorrect, Steve.
Damn.
Thanks for playing.
Yep.
Make sure to call back again soon. Breaker says, I'll let you know. And then my options are back and leave.
Leave?
So I leave.
Yeah.
So then the couch, couch in the booth right next to where I'm standing now has a tooltip over it that says retire.
Yep.
I'm like, oh,
nice.
You were for real. You weren't just kidding. It wasn't like a jokey joke exchange that these two characters have every time you return safely to base. Which is up until this point, that is what I assumed it would be. But I'm like, oh no,
this is
real.
I'm getting too old for this spiel. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Sada is now sitting in a booth there on the screen, and now the previously kind of seen but unnoticed 3 characters sitting in the bar now have name tags appear next to them. And a 4th character walks out of the elevator and goes and sits down on the vacant seat at the bar. So I now have 4 characters sitting at the bar with their names next to them. And a tooltip zips in from the right of screen that says, choose a character for this life. Like, that's deep. That's super deep.
Well, shit.
Oh, God. And you just sat there staring at that for the rest of your 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Going, what have I done?
Yeah.
I could have been anything.
The right character?
Yeah.
Well, spoilers, Steve. I only have about 50 seconds left.
Okay.
But I'm going to read these 4 character names to you because they're all magnificent. We have Cygnus Asante.
Yep.
Mercy Benezek. Jazz Vanderstar.
That is very good.
And Geo Swansea.
Oh.
I'm so glad you pronounced that last one the way you did.
Sure.
The reason why will make itself clear later on.
Okay.
Stay tuned. Yes.
Yep, I got you. All right. Other than these magnificent names that I was being asked to choose between, as I started cursoring over these different characters, I noticed that they have different starting equipment. So they all seem to have a wrench, but then there's other things like sticky remote concussive grenades, rechargeable swappers. I have no idea what any of these things are. Probably the best name is rechargeable extreme range subverter. I'm sure that it does what it says on the tin, but I don't know how that works in the video game. The other thing that
I'm
I
very
noticed
but does it subvert things at extreme range, or does it subvert extreme ranges?
This is a terrible variable name. Is that what your brain is saying, Steve?
Saying I need a comma.
The other thing that I notice is changing is in the top right-hand corner of the screen is the personal mission of each of these characters. So
Wants to learn the guitar.
What are your life goals? Well, look, considering that all of these four, if they were Sims characters, have chosen the career of space cowboy...
I mean, that's a good choice.
Or something equivalent.
Space Cowboy's all right, but I always really, really wanted to learn the flute.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say Space Cowboy's nice, but I really, really have always wanted to be a gangster of love, but you didn't go there. So
that's true. I could have done that. I always wanted to be a pinball wizard.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Anyway, Cygnus Asante has a personal mission of bring in the off-world security officer who tortured my sister.
Okay. It really picked up at the end there.
Bring in the off-world security officer.
Our funny ones were better.
Nice. Mercy Benezek has bring in the off-world security officer who tortured my kid. At which point I went, oh, cool, it's picking options from random things and smushing them together to make arbitrary goals. But that's cool. So I'm thinking, are they all going to be variations on a theme? And kinda. Jazz Vanderstar is wanting to bring in the Foundry officer who murdered my wife. At which point I'm wondering, are these officers now members of the four factions? Am I now learning faction names?
The four faction fridge club.
Yes. And Gio Swansea. Did I just mess you up, Aaron? I'm sorry. Gio Swansea.
Thank you.
Has the personal mission of steal the Signori Mark III to make enough money to pay off a debt. I'm like, cool. That one is significantly different from the other ones.
All right. So the fridge trio, and then the progressive one.
Yep.
I really want their personal goal just to be to steal the Mark III. The end. just like getting the magical car he can't get in 60 seconds.
Nice.
No, it's like all of our goals is to continue stealing things.
Yeah.
Anyway, all of these people have not made very many inroads on their personal missions because all of them have a progress of 1%. So I guess they're sitting at the bar formulating a plan?
Yeah.
Oh, this ragtag motley crew.
Waiting for some form of divine inspiration to select them and take them over to help them accomplish their goal.
They're in pre-prod.
We're not looking for a god in the machine. We're looking for a man operating a machine.
Nice. So anyway, I was drawn towards this fourth personal mission because it was so different from the other three. But then when I reviewed the names again, I had to select the character with just the coolest name.
Yeah.
Steve, do you want to hazard a guess as to which one it was?
One of their names is Jazz.
Yes.
Like done.
Yes. It also made me think of James Vanderbeek, which I found amusing. So
that is
Jazz
good.
Vanderstar.
Yep.
Yes.
Jazz Vanderstar was indeed the one that I went with. So after I select... Sorry, yes, go on.
Sorry, we now have... Because I was going with Jazz, as in the spirit of Jazz from Mighty Boosh.
Right.
So now we have James Vanderbeek playing the spirit of Jazz, which I would very much like to see.
Excellent.
In the sequel to The Rules of Attraction.
Done.
As long as we get a Ryan Gosling La La Land tie-in, I think we're all good.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, because then he can explain Jazz to himself.
Yeah.
That's...
It's the comedy spin-off of La La Land. It explains how comedy works. It's called Ha Ha Land.
And then it apologizes for La La Land existing.
Anyway, not a review, Aaron.
Oh, we're doing games analysis, not film analysis.
After I select Jazz Vanderstar, he, I'm assuming he is a he, hops up from the bar, and I'm now in control. It also tells me I can press the E button to choose a new character, so I guess I can swap in and out whenever I want, maybe?
So are these like your save slots?
I don't know.
Okay.
My assumption, reflecting on this, was: is this kind of like Sunless Sea? Am I going to play a succession of dying and restarting as someone else? That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, given that I'm assuming that I have to successfully not die my way through a series of spaceship incursions.
Yeah.
But it did tell me, choose the character you want to play this life.
Yeah.
So presumably that life ends and you choose a new one.
I guess so, because for me, the concept of a life in a video game exists within playing a session of the game. So, Anyway, existential questions aside, a tooltip is now pointing to another sort of couch, sort of ship captain chair looking thing that's over in the corner of the bar. And the tooltip very alluringly tells me to practice being cool.
All right.
So I'm like, I don't know if this is a comment on Jazz Vanderstar not being cool enough.
He's not, no.
Which I refuse to believe. Anyway, I maneuver over to this thing to practice being cool. I press the E button to start practice. And I'm then immediately teleported with a nice chromatic aberration style transition, showing off my technical prowess there, Steve.
This is a chromatic aberration!
Yes. And your knowledge of Uncharted photo editing techniques.
Yeah, nice. I get a little spiraling chromatic aberration transition.
Yep.
Into a mission. And it's my docking ship attached to a very small 2-room spaceship. In the first room, there are 2 guards with weapons, and in the second room, over another copy of this couch, it tells me that I can press E to end practice mode. Now, pardon me, I assumed that I had to get to the couch to end practice mode, but as the map started moving, I realized that no, that's just a general instruction to pop out of the matrix at any time.
Okay.
A little unfortunate overlap of where the text in the UI is versus what the map had on it. So I slowly edge my way towards this first room because I can see the 2 guards are actively moving around, which the previous ones weren't doing. I can also see that one of them has a key icon over the top of them to open the padlock door. So I'm told to hold the left mouse button to hit a guard with my wrench and then to press spacebar to pause immediately. So I maneuver my way towards the door. I get the first door open, the second door closes, kind of airlock-y style, sort of. And then I maneuver into the room. I wrench attack the guard with the key. And then I press the pause button to pause the game immediately as the other character swings towards me. I pick up the gun that the character has just dropped, and then I hit my 10 minutes.
Nice.
Questions? Queries? Quandaries?
Okay, so I couldn't remember. So did Gunpoint actually have guns in it?
I know you...
So like enemies have them. Like enemies have them. but I don't
you
think
flea
you
jump
do.
onto people and you pummel them is the part
Yeah.
of it that I recall. And then you do a lot of rewiring of circuits
Yeah.
to trixify people.
This is so you're getting a bunch of guns real quick, and presumably you're going to shoot them at people.
I assume so, yes. Although this is the first gun that Jazz Vanderstar has picked up.
Right. Yep. So do you get a sense from this that this is kind of a pause whenever twin stick shooter? Like what are you getting as the emphasis of what you're meant to be doing?
Given that the game told me at the beginning to pick up the Facebreaker, equip it to primary mouse button, which is mouse 1, and that I could travel 8 meters or something to hit somebody with it.
That does seem like a long way.
Now, I don't know if that's because Seder was like super, ultra, mega leveled up.
Yeah.
But I mean, I still zipped across about half of the room from the doorway to this guard to pummel them with a wrench. So what I'm guessing here is that you want to use your wrench to close with someone or someone's, and then use the pause button to then do some, I kind of want to say super hottie style stuff, because in super hot, the world only moves when you move.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the equivalent of press space at any point in time to arbitrarily pause reality.
Yeah.
So I'm getting the feeling that what it wants me to do, or where I think it's going to extrapolate to, is here are multiple enemy types with different weapons or alert levels or abilities in this area. Where are you going to maneuver? How are you going to engage them? And in what sequence are you going to go, well, this one first, then pause, then grab this thing, then do that to this one, then taser this other person, and then do this thing. Maybe that will clear the room. Or maybe that will get me out of this corner I've been backed into.
Right.
I'm thinking target prioritization is going to be a big deal. But I'm assuming that, no, just hit them with a pipe wrench or whatever it is it's kind of the default opener.
Okay.
I could be totally wrong. I haven't played more than the 10 minutes that I played of this game.
No, that's fine.
But that's my assumption.
The other thing that I was wondering about is when you read the item description for your super wrench,
My Facebreaker, yes.
It listed a lot of stats.
Yes.
That to me seem like they're giving away the mechanics that it wants you to be using them for.
Right.
Right. It's like you already talked about how far you can close distance. It said it creates noise within 1 meter.
Yeah.
So presumably things can hear, and
Yep.
you want to do things where things can't hear.
You don't want to alert more people than you're capable of handling at any given time, yes.
Yeah. And there's been a lot of talk of meterage,
Yes.
which is kind of unusual, I think, for a video game. To be like, this is how far this reaches, all that sort of stuff.
I've just pulled up the tooltip of this again,
Yeah.
Steve, to just have a look at it. Knocks people unconscious for the foreseeable future, effective against armoured guards, dash 8 meters to strike a target, swing again almost immediately after a successful strike.
Yes.
So being
That was
able to
one of
string, being able to string these together, and when it says almost immediately, that doesn't mean instantly. Eventually, I did notice that as you use weapons or items, you do get a bit of a cooldown bar over their icon in the top left of screen, but it took me a while to notice that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the presumption
strike
there,
really-
the presumption
Sorry, go on.
being that if you attempt to hit and miss, you have
And
a
you're
much longer
broken,
cooldown.
Yeah, you have a much longer cooldown, and you're going to have to pause the game and think of something else to do to get out of it. And yes, the strike can only be heard from 1 meter away. Amusingly, I just noticed, now that I'm staring at this again, Fiasco's Facebreaker is a unique item, and it has been used 347 times.
That's a lot of faces.
Which is
how
odd
do you think-
because my lifetime stats are 0 for everything.
Yeah.
But I guess that
Yeah.
window applies to me, Tony, and not to Fiasco and their Facebreaker.
Yeah. So, how do you think this game's quantifying meters in terms of play space?
That's an excellent question. I hadn't really thought about it, but I'm going to go with I can see how big my human is, and I'm assuming that's human scale, so I can probably ballpark that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that what you think the game wants you to do? Is to just like make generalized assumptions about space?
I would guess so. I think probably
Okay.
where I would start to get a sense of it for realsies is if I tried to strike somebody and I was too far away,
Yeah.
or if I hit somebody and somebody just around the corner but within a meter went, huh?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, but that hasn't happened to
Cool.
me yet.
The sort of thing that you can discover when it happens.
Yes. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of things here where I go, I think this will work. Oh, that didn't work. What don't I understand yet? Oh, that
Yeah,
got me killed.
totally.
What did I do wrong? Oh, that didn't work the way I planned. What did I miss or forget?
Yeah.
Or that was unexpected.
Yeah.
Yep. Steve.
I have another question.
Yeah, go for it.
Is this the last that you think that you'll play of Seder Fiasco?
Uh, do you want my developer answer or my storytelling answer? Like the technical implementation answer, or what would I like for the story arc?
Story.
For the story arc, I would like Seder Fiasco to remain in the story, but be kind of like the wizened old sage who doesn't want to get involved but eventually does, but not under my control.
Or potentially subverting that trope one step further and have them never, ever, ever get back into the business ever again for the remainder of the game.
That's a bit dark.
Yeah, so just somewhere in Act 3, be like, Sadie, you got to help us out. It's like, didn't I fucking say I was retired?
Yeah, I'm
drinking.
fucking retired. Sort your shit out. That'd be such a BoJack thing to do. Classic BoJack, subverting tropes.
So I pulled up a screenshot to try and figure out this 1 meter business because now I'm fixated on it.
Oh, Aaron, what have you wrought?
So the levels look like they're either configured out of modules or perhaps procedural, like the spaceships.
Okay.
Yep.
And it looks like the smallest thing in its arsenal is a doorway, which I'm going to assume is 1 meter by 2 meter. So,
Okay.
so that hallways are 2 meters across.
That would match pretty well with the human scale thing that I was.
Yeah, which is about the size of one person.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that looks pretty clearly to be the smallest unit that exists
Right.
in a spaceship.
Okay.
In terms of navigable space rather than detailing.
Yeah, as opposed to like texture detail. Like doors, hallways, etc. all look like they're probably 2 meters.
Okay.
Which, yes, I suppose means that you could walk up behind a guard, hit them in the back of the head, and then just walk 1 meter forward and hit the next one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which would be pretty amazing if you could trick the guards into standing in a very long, straight line. Like, dunk, dunk, dunk. Now, that would be pretty cool.
That would be amazing.
Although I would anticipate, given that they ragdoll directly away from you, that would probably alarm the next person when they have a body hurtle into their back.
Oh, but what if they get
Or
stunned?
knock them over like bowling pins.
Do it, yes. What if they get stunned and then they fall into the next one and stun them?
Steve, I have a suggestion. How about we remove these interactions from the game?
You're right, it's too complex. I've thought about it, it's too emergent.
You know what this
Players are going to figure it out.
Interactive medium
They're going to have too much
less
fun.
of? This interactive medium needs less interactions.
It needs to be more deterministic.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the stats are one of the things that I wanted to bring up. The other one that's like forever ago now is it's 2D top-down, but it's space travel. But from a bunch of your descriptions, this really isn't Kerbal. Whereas I had not seen much of this game to begin with
Right.
until you described it to me.
Right.
And I had kind of just assumed that its space would be spacey. Like that it would just
Kevin Spacey?
Yes. Yep. He'd be there. But not
like K-Pax?
But not K-Pax. See, that's what you think it would be.
Oh, not K-Pax.
Actually, his character from Call of Duty. Yeah, no. The evil PMC owner. You'd never see it coming.
Yeah.
Spoilers for whichever Call of Duty it was that has Kevin Spacey in it. He's the bad guy. So
what mental model did you have in your head? What assumptions had you built around that?
I had assumed that this was going to be that the space stuff when you started describing it. My like default set was going to be, well, if you accelerate for half of your journey, you spin the ship and you burn for the exact same amount of time, and then you
rest.
And then and then you RC thruster your way to the airlock.
Yep.
Or you just boom and wait for them to come out. You go like, we have to exchange insurance information, and then you go pew pew pew. So not Kerbal. Discuss. What are your thoughts? Why is it not Kerbal? Other than like to be real Kerbal would be a lot of effort.
Well, Steve, if you'll recall, this game very succinctly informs us that this is a game where you can go inside the spaceships.
Yes.
And I think the primary space, if you'll pardon the pun, in which this game operates is actually not in space.
Not space.
It's inside the spaceships.
Excellent. So if you'll indulge me to rephrase.
Sure.
It's going to lengths to make space feel spacey without making it space, because it's not about space.
It wants you to know that it's set in space and that space is big, but it doesn't want you to be focusing on flying your ship, is my assumption at this point. I mean, ship flying is going to be involved, but I'm not anticipating that's the main mode of play.
It doesn't, from your description, it doesn't seem like that's the challenge that it wants you to face.
Yep.
At least not in the orbital mechanics sense.
Yes.
Yeah, the challenge comes from being able to differentiate semiotic signifiers.
In a game called Heat Signature.
Yep.
Yeah.
The semiotic signifiers signature.
Yeah.
Did you use infrared vision at any point?
Not so far.
Getting there.
If we still played,
I recall. I have like the briefest flash of memory in my head of like a Predator Vision style moment at one point during your playthrough. I think when you were aiming your gun at somebody.
Right. Okay. If we still played the name game, Steve, we probably would have had this conversation. But yes, I'm not quite sure how the name relates to the play yet.
So I have an alternate theory.
Okay.
In that it is Heat in the GTA sense.
Right.
Because you had 470 seconds before the game was over.
Right.
Once they knew you were aboard.
Okay. And then signature, inferring the signature move of face breaking people.
Face breaking, yeah. The signature Bioshock move of wrenching people in the back of the head.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
Classic.
Were there any other questions or any other general topics you wanted to talk about?
Those are my ones.
Yep.
I've got nothing.
Okay.
I'm good.
Well, if that's the case, are you happy to jump straight into a 10-minute check?
Yes.
Do it.
Ooh, bananas. So has this game told me what it's about? Yes. It's a game where you can go inside the spaceships.
Yeah. It's on the 10.
It reinforces this by putting me in and out of a spaceship a number of times, making me maneuver and dock with spaceships, showing me the zooming in when I enter a spacecraft. And it's also given me a very clear and repeatedly reinforced message of pause often, figure out what you're going to do, and situational awareness of like you have full map control. You can zoom around, you can pan around and get a lay of the land and figure out what your next move is going to be. So this game is about moving through spaceships, taking out the bad people, grabbing, I assume, cool loot, and there are 4 factions bases that I have to take over to end the war of the cloud or galaxy or whatever noun they used. Does it teach me how to play the game? It does, in a very succinct fashion. It doesn't muck around with abstracting tooltips. It's just very blunt and to the point, giving me, Tony, sitting at the computer, instructions on what I need to do, without building a whole bunch of narrative, sort of fluff around the outside of those instructions. But it does also give a nice narrative element to things where, say, to Fiasco is somebody that I spent, 8.5 minutes with, 9 minutes with. But I've got a reasonably strong sense of what kind of person they are, what they care about, what their history is, and how they fit into this world. And also that they're getting too old for this shit. I also get a good sense of the flavor of this world through a lot of the, I believe Firefly was the reference that you made, Aaron, for the kind of decoration and style of things, and also in how these characters are conversing with one another. And there's this nice little tongue-in-cheek tone that isn't just in the game world, it's also in the actual game in terms of how it's presenting itself to me with tooltips and information and so on. Nice consistency to bridge that humor across those 2 different layers. I think that covers it. So, Steve, it might be time, maybe just perhaps, for the plugs.
We need to plug them up with force fields because all the atmosphere is getting out of the ship. So, if you would like to contact us, you'll have to wait because I demand a song.
I was waiting to see if Aaron was just going to jump in and go, I have to sing now.
I thought I was planning on leaving it until the very end of the episode. It's like Springsteen take us out, but that's okay. Plugs can continue to take us out. So Springsteen got in touch, and Bruce wanted to. Bruce was a real big fan of the lore of this game that was presented in this very early part. Particularly, he wanted to write a song that started to explore the backstory of one of the patrons of this bar.
Nice.
One of the 4 that you could have gone with, Tony, but not the one that you did go with. Nice. Which I think is interesting because now we're getting a broader spectrum of things where we're learning more about the various denizens of this galaxy.
Which of them are the road less traveled, Aaron?
So we've gone with Geo Swansea.
Okay.
And here's what Bruce sent to me.
Okay.
Well, my name is Geo Swansea, and I'm sitting at this bar. Out the window, a galaxy waits. Travel light years, you won't get far.
Oof, got dark there at the end.
Geo's got a lot of shit on their shoulders.
That's why he's at a bar for a reason.
Yeah, thankfully none of that shit is sitting inside of a fridge.
Can I ask you a pointed question, Aaron?
Go for it.
Did you go with Geo because they were the only one whose name fit within the cadence?
No, because what's the name of the character you're playing at the beginning again? Sata
Fiasco.
Jackrabbit. Well, Sata Fiasco.
Yep.
Sata Fiasco totally fit. In terms of if you do Sata Fiasco, then you go Sata Fiasco. But
give me a Jazz Vanderstar.
Jazz Vanderstar. See, it doesn't work. Jazz Vanderstar was never going to work out.
No,
Sorry, Jazz.
But you could change it to Jazz Van Der Star, but then it sounds like Jazz Van, which is a totally different thing.
Come join me on my Jazz Van. Actually, Jazz Vanderstar would be totally appropriate for a Greetings from Asbury Park, Wild the Innocent E Street Shuffle era of Springsteen songwriting. I can totally imagine Blinded by the Light having a bit inside of talking about a jukebox graduate for a first mate, pivoting over into Jazz Vanderstar.
I don't think we've
Bobbing
so
with the
successfully
blues.
derailed the plugs so quickly.
So if you'd like
so
to contact us,
Contacting.
you could email us. The email address is contact@thefirst2minutes.com. You could also get in touch with us via social media. That is on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, SoundCloud, Libsyn, Instagram,
Yay.
technically Twitch. One day we'll get to use it for something useful. And technically Patreon. Although, again, one day we'll set it up and use it for something useful.
Slowly.
Slowly.
One day you'll plug that. One day you'll plug that with something useful.
Yep.
I'm going to do the YouTube plug. Please head to our YouTube channel and check out the Let's Plays that we're posting there. Thank you.
Yep, that continues.
Yes.
So, hey, Aaron, are you on the internet again?
Hey.
Kind of. Enough
yes,
that someone
yes.
could leave something there for you, perhaps. Like some sort of
Enough that I could...
digital message.
Indeed they could. You can maybe find me on Twitter at Rundown Flamingo, spelled how it sounds. Also a Springsteen reference. Or you can contact me at Pushing B, also on Twitter, or at www.pushingb.com for some good essays on narrative design in video games. Hey Steve. I'd like to send you a message of my favorite Springsteen lyrics. How can I do that?
I mean, that's probably just at me on Twitter.
Okay.
That'd be @_Steve Halliwell.
Yep.
If for some reason you wanted to, I don't know, invite me to a private GitHub repo of all of your favorite Springsteen songs, you could do so by going to my website, where you could find out more stuff about me and what I'm up to and where I am on the internet. That's stevehalliwell.com.
That's good. Hey, Tony.
Go.
Tony, I wanna send you a list of the lyrics, the Springsteen lyrics that I sent to Steve that Steve thought were really good, to see whether or not you also think that they're really good. So that there's
great.
3 people that think they're really good.
I look forward to it.
How can I do that?
I mean, I'm sure you'll figure it out. It's a puzzle.
You've solved my social media contact puzzle.
But if you want the game facts answer, you can contact me on Twitter. Contact me on Twitter at Kalinskald. That's KALINSKALD. I also do a game developer interview podcast called Downloadable Context, which you can find at downloadablecontext.com or on Twitter at DLContext. Thus endeth the podcast episode.
Okay.
So thank you all very much for listening, and we'll catch you again next time.
All right.
See ya.
Later.